like a lot of people don't realize that there's protein in a lot of things. Like a lot of people don't realize that there's protein in broccoli. Like,
Whoa.
Like broccoli has like it's small amounts of protein, but broccoli has protein in it. Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Wellness Dojo podcast, where we bring real solutions to real health and wellness problems. Today, we're talking about protein. What do you actually need to know about protein? How much protein should you be eating on a daily basis, and what are the benefits to eating more protein? We also talk about the essential qualities of amino acids, and we hope that you're able to take some practical advice from this episode. Let's go. All right, episode 11. This is exciting stuff.
Hello.
How are you today?
Here we go. I'm doing well. I got a workout in this morning.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
A little bit. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to get a workout in and it's going to wake me up. And sometimes it kind of does the opposite. Yeah. That's okay.
You're just waiting for that second win now.
Yeah, well, it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. This podcast is going to bring it to you. Yes, the energy is here. Yeah. I'm excited about this topic today. We decided we're going to talk a little bit about protein. I think protein is one of those things that can be get very confused, very overcomplicated. And so we kind of wanted to talk to the people about, what is protein? How do we kind of simplify it? What do you actually need to know about protein?
Yes. Hello to the people. Hello, people out there. We're going to let you know. We're going to let you know all you need to know about protein from a dietary perspective, why it's important in the body. And yes, let's simplify things because it can be simple. We can throw out some simplified numbers out there, and even though there's some calculations floating out there, we can we can streamline it here, and that's our goal by the end of the day, is that there's less confusion and less questions than when you started.
Yeah. So, I mean, pun intended, let's get into the breakdown a little bit of what protein is. So we'll kind of do the science side first, and then we'll get a little bit more practical, I think, toward the end. But there's probably a lot of people who think okay, protein, great. I've heard that so many times. Protein, what really is protein?
And can I jump in super quick here? Yeah. The word protein comes from this root word protos, or something like proteos, which means first. Yeah. Which I thought was very fitting because, I mean, protein comes first before almost anything when it comes to the body. And I'm talking about DNA replication, just our own structure. We need it for so many things, which Kyle's going to get into here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. It really is essential. And when we talk essential, we got to talk essential amino acids, right? Mm-hmm. And so for those of you who might not know, proteins, basically, you often will hear amino acids and proteins kind of interchangeably, especially in the fitness nutrition world. Mm-hmm. The reason for that is because proteins are actually made up of amino acids, right?
Right. So when you hear amino acids from this podcast going forward, you can think protein. You can. It doesn't have to be a mystery anymore. What the heck are amino acids? I had a professor call them amines and amino, and it drove me crazy. But yes, so when you hear amino acids from this podcast on, you can think protein, for practicality's sake, interchangeably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Ali, can you tell the people just a little bit more about amino acids? What actually are they? And then we can kind of get into what do they actually do for us.
Okay, amino acids, building blocks of protein. They're so microscopic we can't even really wrap our heads around how small they are. When we think about protein, we think about muscles and meat and things like that. Proteins and amino acids are unbelievably small and microscopic. They're just, they're made up of what everything else is made up of. They're made up of carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, but specifically nitrogen. That's what kind of sets them apart from something like a carb or even a fat is that nitrogen. So that's really we're getting down a little too granular there. Let's start building up now. So amino acids, I like to make this relatable to some people out there. So one of the probably most popular single amino acids that the general public knows about is tryptophan, because we hear about it all the time at Thanksgiving, that it's what makes you sleepy, which I don't think that's true anymore, but let's just go with it because, it's in the zeitgeist, it's in the ethos. So tryptophan would be an example of an amino acid. Now, you've heard about amino acids. Now you know that you can interchangeably, for practicality's sake, use amino acids and protein interchangeably, but there's this other term about essential amino acids. And we hear this, in nutrition as well. Essential fatty acids, essential amino acids. When you hear the word essential, that means that your body can't make it, and it's essential that you eat it because your body can't formulate it on its own. So there's a group of amino acids that are essential, and there's 9 of them. And this is why it's really important to eat right.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Good one, yeah. and to backpedal just a little bit for people who are listening, you have, nutrients and chemicals in your body. Like, your body is a really fascinating thing. So if you, for example, are eating less carbohydrate and your body is used to using carbohydrate for energy, for fuel, your body will actually then go to, your fat cells, for example, as one of the more simplified ways of looking at it. Your body will then go to your fat cells, and it'll start to break down that bond, that chemical bond, and it will take what it needs to build a glucose or a glycogen, to build that carbohydrate energy source for you. So it can actually take things apart and piece things together. So when we're talking about essential things in your body, that means that your body can't actually, it doesn't have the pieces required, it doesn't store those pieces that are required to be able to rebuild that when it needs it. So, and that's where it comes in. Well, that's why it's important for us to then actually ingest that for our body so that it has the tools that it needs. It has those pieces to take apart and put together when it needs to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. And, protein, it's so much more than building muscles and eating meat. You need protein for your immune system, for your immune cells themselves. You need protein for your hormones. You need protein for your brain chemicals and neurotransmitters, which is, the thing that regulates your thinking and your mood. So for the duration of this episode, I want you to try to start thinking about protein as more than just muscle protein synthesis.
Yeah.
And, and just kind of like the slab of meat you might have on your dinner plate. The other thing that I didn't mention there yet was enzymes.
Yeah.
Enzymes too. So that's probably something that people hear about here and there. Maybe we can clear that up a little bit, what enzymes are.
Yeah, so enzymes are actually what break down your food, and basically anything you ingest into your body, your enzymes break it down, take it apart, and kind of start to give that sort of direction in the body of okay, this kind of goes here, this goes there. But the enzymes are you can think of it if you've ever put something in water and it starts bubbling and dissolving kind of thing. That's I kind of think of
happening.
That's kind of how I picture enzymes when I think of it. Is it's as that food kind of enters your digestive system, it starts picking and pulling it apart and just sorting through the nutrients for the body to use.
So enzymes are made of protein, and then these enzymes that are made of protein break down other proteins. So if you're, if we're not illustrating it yet, how important proteins actually are, I don't think we ever will. So yes, it really is. It's kind of, we say amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And then one of the central dogmas of biology is that protein is the building blocks of life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so protein and amino acids in general, they're important for helping you build muscle. When you're working out, you got to eat protein afterwards, so you give your body what it needs to build muscle, but there's so much more, right? They're helping you build those enzymes, which is essential so that when you are eating those good nutrient-dense quality foods, that your body is actually able to pull it apart properly and sort it out. It also helps build hormones too, which help you regulate your systems. And this is something that's right up your realm.
Oh yeah. Hormones. It's, if you're somebody that studies hormones, you might even say that it's hormones that governs everything in the body. It kind of depends on what your perspective is, but hormones, we typically think of testosterone, estrogen, but it's a lot more. It's your stress hormones like cortisol. It's even you can argue that a hormone is really anything that is released in one place of the body, kind of travels to another and exerts an effect there. So if that's the definition, goodness, it's half the things that your nervous system makes and sends out to other places in your body. certain vitamins like vitamin D. They say, well, vitamin D is actually a hormone because it's, it's absorbed in the skin. It goes through this process through the kidney and then the liver, but then it exerts its effect all over the body. So it's actually a hormone and not necessarily a vitamin. So yes, maybe I should just, it's a wonderful, huge, very interesting topic, but we need protein for those things, right? And so that's why, when I say the central dogma of biology, that's what it's called. That was the old school geneticists that came up with that, and they would say like, DNA makes RNA, RNA makes protein, and then protein makes life, essentially. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense why, when we're looking at, why somebody is struggling with certain things, whether it's weight loss or whether it's motivation or whatever the case might be, we first look at diet, right? Mm-hmm. Because as you can even see from just this like first, 10 minutes of what we've talked about with protein, like it's so essential for like how your body actually works day to day.
Right. And how do you get those essential proteins and amino acids other than through the diet? I mean, that is really the only practical way that you can do it. And when I was reviewing for this, something that I'd previously missed is some of these amino acids that are essential that you can only get through your diet, some of them are needed as precursors to dopamine, which is your motivation and reward chemical. And then the other was leucine and isoleucine, which are just imperative to create lean muscle mass. And so these are part of the essential, which your body can't make themselves. You need it through the diet. So that's why it's really important to eat protein and to make sure that you're getting all of the essential amino acids. And we will tell you how to do that in this episode.
Yeah. I found that fascinating when you were telling me that, of like, especially the motivation piece, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people struggle with motivation, and it's like the more you eat horribly, the less motivated you seem to be. And so that's fascinating as like that piece of like when you're eating more lean proteins and stuff like that, it makes sense why you're feeling more motivated, why you have more desire to want to go and, burn energy and just live a healthy lifestyle. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and that one is called phenylalanine for anyone who's interested out there. I know if I could just feel a few eyes glaze over. But yes, as an example, and I created a handout not too long ago called Mood, Memory, and Motivation Diet, and phenylalanine was a big component of that I made sure was in some of those foods. And, it's not just eating protein that's important. There's cofactors, there's certain vitamins and minerals that you need in order to expedite the process of this, let's say dopamine being created, and things like that. But which kind of brings up, this carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Like, is that still a thing? It was a few years ago.
I've still heard it circulating around. Somebody's selling a book somewhere about it, so it's still out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever recommended it to anyone?
Never.
No.
I've had people ask me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think about this and stuff? And like, I'll be completely honest, I have not taken the time to like fully like look into it and research it, because to me, it just goes against everything that I've ever believed about nutrition.
Yeah.
That being said, I could be wrong. There might be, more to it than meets the eye. I'm also not a believer in just, going off headlines and thinking that that's the truth. So I should look into it more. And, full transparency, I haven't. But yeah, I haven't recommended it to anybody.
And I wouldn't. I would just think you would have to supplement on that, because where's the antioxidants? Where's the vitamin C? Where's the fiber? You're putting in a lot of cholesterol.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything to help your body remove it? Like, the body is amazing to a certain capacity. It will do things to make up for deficiencies where it can, as long as it can. But eventually, it falls off the rails a little bit.
Yeah. I've never understood this concept of like eating a certain way that makes you have to supplement. Right? Like, unless you like have to eat that way for like a medical reason, and therefore then you need to supplement because you're deficient in something. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you purposely put yourself in a position where you need to then supplement for things that are lacking?
Yeah. Well, I think that I can see staunch moral values and religious guidelines coming into play there.
Yeah.
But let's give that a pass. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe just miseducation.
Yep.
About how dangerous it can be.
I think so too.
And what happens if you actually don't get all of the, let's say, the B vitamins that are in these proteins, and let's face it, mostly in the animal sources, especially B12, how dangerous it can be, and how impactful it can be on your body, on your energy levels. Yeah. So
can you give a couple examples for people? So, for people who maybe have reduced their intake of meat protein or animal protein, like what are some of the risks associated to this? And not to say that you shouldn't do that, but this will help people who, if they are eating this way, then, watch out for these things. And if you are experiencing these things, then, maybe talk to somebody like Dr. Riley about supplementation on how you can kind of counter that.
Sure. So, I mean, it's everything from low energy to full-fledged neurological disorders. Things like thiamine deficiency, which is B1, things like niacin deficiency, which is B3. We see these, so we've seen this more historically. Now, in countries that this has happened in, they will add in these nutrients into their rice or into the production of some of their mainstream foods. So thank goodness we don't tend to see a lot of this anymore, because we've learned our lesson. It's horrendous what can happen. So yeah, so that's pretty bad scenarios. Another would be kwashiorkor, which is something that we really only learn about. We see it on commercials for World Hunger and things like that with the distended bellies. Kind of going back into my memory bank of the mechanism, but I think what happens is if you don't eat enough protein tends to help you hold water within your body in all the right places. If you eat a diet too low in protein, it starts going out, and it starts going out into the stomach and into different places and starts distending. So we have, I only bring it up, it's we don't see it here, just so people have a visual representation and relation to it. And so full-fledged neurological disorders, but then more commonly with B12, you're really just going to see that in your energy levels. And we're not talking just you feel a little bit tired. It's like I'm depressed, I can't do anything, kind of tired. Yeah. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes what we look at is, are there deficiencies happening in the body? You could argue that, if you're not being careful, you're going to have not just a B vitamin deficiency, but also be low in iron as well. If you're not eating enough, high quality iron sources. You can get away with it being a vegetarian. You can eat spinach and get your leafy greens, and depending on if you're a pesco vegetarian, some of the highest sources of iron come in the form of like oysters and clams and mussels and things like that. But yeah, you have to be very calculated and strategic if you're going to go that route, because it can actually be dangerous to have a diet like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important anytime somebody changes the way they're eating, whether it's, reducing protein in their diet or whatever the case might be, that you just pay attention to, like, how is your body different? Like, how is your body reacting? How is your body different? And then from there, you can start to say, okay, something's off here. Now I need to go and get some support and find some answers with it. Right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So let's, maybe, do you want to jump into how people should eat first? We'll get into how much protein you should eat, but I'm really interested in this concept of complete proteins. Yeah. Because what a complete protein means to me is it has all those 9 essential amino acids in it. Yeah. So just straight off the bat, a complete protein you're going to find in the animal sources. Yeah. It's going to have all of it, and it's going to have all the B vitamins.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why,
and iron.
There's a reason why, especially people who are like prone to building muscle and stuff like that, or like bodybuilders or just any kind of athletes and stuff. There's a reason why protein, and specifically meat protein for a lot of them, has been so prominent over the years.
Yeah, you just can't argue with, our omnivorous nature. It's just how we developed. It's just, our bodies, they know what to do with animal source proteins. there's this concept of bioavailability, which means if you eat 1 gram of animal protein versus 1 gram of plant protein, is it equal? I don't think it is. I think it's been proven that it's not. Our body readily accepts the animal protein. It breaks it down. It distributes it efficiently.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Like, I'm sure there's people out there with varied diets and varied morals. We're just talking, we're trying to be neutral. You know, as much as we can be. Everyone has biases, but like it just kind of is what it is at a certain point.
Yeah, and that's what I was just gonna say too. Is like, don't take this as us trying to like deter you away from a belief or anything like that you have. People have different reasons for reducing the amount of meat that they're eating and stuff in their lives, and people have very legitimate reasons for that. All we're doing is we're trying to point out what benefits do come from eating those things. And so that if you are adjusting your diet in a certain way that reduces it, here's what you need to know. And like, these are some things to be aware of so that you can then go and, luckily we live in a day and age where we do have the opportunity to supplement some of these things and to really try and help get that support back into our system if it is lacking it. So that's kind of the whole purpose of this, is to highlight the importance of protein, but also if you aren't getting as much of it through your diet right now as you should be maybe getting, then there are ways that you can help that.
Yeah. And I find these days it's like sometimes it's a case of trying to get someone to eat more sources of animal protein, especially in naturopathic medicine. We tend to see a lot of patients that come to us who are vegetarian. But, like I also find that generally in the general population, it's more likely that you're trying to get someone to actually reduce their just straight up meat intake throughout the week. And that's something that I want to mention here and kind of get into is that, meat it's so expensive these days. I don't buy beef anymore. It's just
special occasions.
It's outrageous. Yeah. And it's laborious to cook. Sometimes there's the marinade process, and you're defrosting, and like then the actual cook, depending on what you're doing, can be an hour or longer.
This is provided you actually like have time to sit down and try and be a chef.
Yeah.
For me, I'm just like, get it in the oven, salt and pepper. Got to get the kids fed. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a time cost. There's a financial cost. And if you're one of those people that just associates protein with meat, well, I want to talk about some protein combinations that have nothing to do with meat. This is something I've been looking into for a while. It started when I was a quote-unquote starving student, and I was like, how do I get my protein in me without buying $40 steaks or whatever the price is these days? Yeah. And so there's some really obvious combinations and some not so obvious combinations that are really interesting. So I think one that probably jumps to mind with most people is rice and beans makes a complete protein. Let's just take a second and look at that. The one amino acid that rice is lacking, I believe it's lysine. Beans it might even be particularly high in, and then the opposite, which is something called methionine. And so they perfectly complement each other. And so, that's all well and good, but here's what I find really interesting. Cultures and civilizations figured this out a long time ago, and we were talking about what happens if you don't have complete proteins in the body, your immune system might be low. I think they figured out a while back that the people or communities that eat this combination of foods tend to be healthier, tend to have better immune systems, maybe live longer. Like, we figured this out intuitively, and now scientifically we can see why. Yeah.
Just being more in tune with your body, it just like speaks to the power of that intuitiveness, like you said.
Yeah.
Yep.
So rice and beans, popular combination. Another one that there's some cultural significance is whole wheat pita and hummus, which is so cool. Peanut butter and whole wheat bread makes a complete protein. And then I want to talk about vegetable sources that are complete proteins on their own. So that would be things like quinoa is one. Buckwheat. Shout out to buckwheat, which I mentioned on the podcast a couple episodes ago.
It's going buckwheat crazy over here, man.
Going buck wild. So quinoa, buckwheat. I believe hemp seeds, maybe chia. Some of them are kind of low, maybe in one essential here or there, but I believe they still contain it. Yeah. So rice and lentils, certain, I think, legumes and nuts. So if you're doing like some kind of a bean and nut salad or whatever, that's a complete protein. So there you have it. Rice and beans, beans and nuts, things like whole wheat bread and hummus. What else do we got there? I believe like peanut butter, not the icing sugar kind, organic peanut butter and whole wheat bread. So yeah, you can make combinations. And what I love to do personally is I will mix a few things together. I think I'm just trying to be overly cautious, but I'll do this big like protein fiber carby dish, and it'll be like brown rice, mung bean, that's one that I started getting into, very healthy, and lentils, and that'll be my carb, is those three working together. So I know I've got my bases covered. And when I'm looking at that, most people would look at that and just think that's carbs. I'm now looking at that and going, that's protein. And I'm not that worried about getting a whole bunch of meat in there because I know that I'm getting my protein.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's interesting too because, people are probably sitting back listening, they're going, great, like now I need to know like which protein to eat with which protein. No, you don't. Like, you don't have to let it get like super complicated. Like, these are fascinating facts, but if you just try to create more variety through your diet, and in terms of like knowing like, okay, these foods do carry along, either significant or maybe even not significant, but some amounts of protein. If you can just start to get more creative and include more variety into your diet, you're going to be giving yourself a better chance of like hitting the mark on all of these different things. Right? And it's fascinating too that like a lot of people don't realize that there's protein in a lot of things. Like, a lot of people don't realize that there's protein in broccoli. Like,
whoa.
Like, broccoli has like it's small amounts of protein, but broccoli has protein in it. Right? Like, people don't even, like, a lot of people wouldn't even associate protein to rice. Right? They just think carbs.
Yes.
Right? When you are including more whole foods into your diet, like nutrient dense whole foods, like we've talked about in past episodes, right? Like whole grain, where it hasn't been dissected to just have a better shelf life, like whole foods, you are giving yourself a better chance at just increasing protein in your diet, just in general, right?
Exactly. And that's what the nutritionists say about vegetable intake too. They said just diversify the colors. This is so cool, and I hope I can do this justice. The reason why things are different vegetables are different colors is because they have different constituents and antioxidants in them that just reflect light differently. So if you're eating different colors, they're going to have different nutritional profiles, and it's just based on the light that they bend into your eyes. So that's why orange things tend to have vitamin A, and purple things tend to have these awesome antioxidants in them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So
it's so fascinating. Yeah. So what are some other ways we can get more protein in our diet? If we're just looking from like a simplified point of view, like some of the things that I'll suggest to people, obviously depending on their current dietary needs and stuff like that, but just in general, like plain Greek yogurt.
Yes,
right?
Thank you for bringing that up.
Plain Greek yogurt is a great
source.
way. Even if I have had clients that, like, if they really need to get their protein up, is like plain Greek yogurt, and they'll even, like, instead of having a protein shake, they'll put a scoop of protein powder into their yogurt and they'll mix it up. Right? It's like a good blast of protein, like after a workout or something, easy thing to eat. Eggs obviously are fairly high in protein. We've talked about lean meats, fish, legumes, beans, like all those types of things. Anything else that you can think of?
I did it this morning, and I do this almost every morning. I put protein powder, flavored, it's maple flavored, protein powder in with my oatmeal.
Maple flavored that sounds amazing.
It is yes, I got the New Zealand grass-fed protein powder.
Nice
little flex there, but yes. So it's just the instant oatmeal. I'm not boiling it for 10. I'm just adding water, letting it sit. And so I pre-mix just my oats and my protein powder together. I've got my ratio that I like, so it's all sitting in a container, and then I just kind of scoop it out. And so it's really simple. I just kind of pre-mix it on a Sunday. It takes 10 minutes, right? I'll add things to it. I'll add like a little bit of vanilla extract, a little bit of coconut oil and cinnamon. You can add clove powder. Like I love to dress it up. You can add nuts and seeds. But, the simpler, probably the better for consistency. And there's probably 30 grams of protein. And I add boiling water to it. I've tried to look it up. Does it denature I couldn't find any evidence really one way or the other that it ruins it.
Yeah.
And I think it's more or less fine. So there's probably, 25 to 30 grams of protein in my oatmeal in the morning.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, that's awesome. So with these examples that we're giving, people are probably thinking like, okay, great. I'm just going to like load myself up with protein now. Like I'm going to get all these amazing benefits from it. Should people do that? Should people just go like, okay, I'm going hard on the protein now?
Full carnivore diet. Well, no, because, we talked about the enzymes needed to break it down. You need I believe it's quite a high acidic environment in your stomach in order to break down that much protein. If you're just loading yourself up with protein and not with fiber and not, realizing you might have to increase your water intake and things like that. So no, don't go 0 to 100, please. Never do that. But you also should know like roughly what your target is for protein.
Yeah. So when I talk to my clients about this, when I'm saying if we come to a decision of like, okay, we definitely need to increase the protein in your diet. It's like, well, how much, right? People will say like, yeah, I've read I need like 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per like lean muscle mass.
Yeah. I've heard 0.8 grams per kilo. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I think we can at least point people in the right direction and simplify that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't need to be whipping out your who's whipping out their calculator?
Yeah.
I can't even find it on my phone. I know it's in my pocket. I still can't find it.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, so what I do is I'll look at, first of all, like, where are we starting? And anytime you're questioning like, where do I need to go, you first need to know where you're starting from. Right? It doesn't make any sense to think of like, oh, this is where I need to be if you haven't even looked at where you are. So look at where you're at. How much protein am I currently eating? So then I would suggest that you track your protein intake for a couple of weeks. Don't change anything about the way that you're eating, and get a good compass on like, where am I with my protein intake? So let's just say, Cindy Lou Who is eating.
Shout out to Cindy Lou Who.
Shout out. Cindy Lou Who, okay? She's eating 50 grams of protein. She weighs 200 pounds now, by the way.
Okay.
So she's only eating 50 grams of protein. So if she looks at that, one of those formulas online, she might go, oh, geez, I need to be eating like 100 more grams of protein a day. So now Cindy Lou Who goes, okay, I'm going to go buy some lean chicken breasts. I'm going to start eating all the Greek yogurts that I can and all these types of things to really increase that protein intake. Well, two things are going to happen. One, she's not going to be able to sustain that. It's too big of a change right out of the gate. She might sustain it for a while, but that's going to be a really difficult thing for her to sustain long term. The other thing that's going to happen is she's going to feel like shit. Like, it's going to be really hard on her system to jump to that level of protein. Anytime you change your diet in a drastic way, you feel it. Like, you notice it in your system. And protein being one of those complex nutrients, complex macronutrients to break down, it takes time. It takes a lot of energy and effort from your body to really break it down because it is so abundant in nutrients. And so it's going to be hard on your system to overload it like that.
And it might even, I've heard of it affecting people's sleep because protein, it's something that's called thermogenic, which it will increase your metabolism, but you don't just want to like hit it right away and just, spike your metabolism. It can if you're eating a ton of protein at nighttime, it can overheat you, your body trying to process it and deal with it. So if, maybe there's someone out there, and I have heard of this happening from someone pretty close to me, that if you're eating a bunch of protein for dinner, or that's like your nighttime snack, and then you're just really hot, not to mention dehydrated, but actually like legitimately hot at nighttime, it could be because of that. So your body feels it. There's no one rides for free. It's all there's a cause and effect to everything.
That's right. So what do we do with that? Well, small incremental changes, right? If you're looking at, I need more protein in my diet, first step is find out where you're at, right? How much am I eating? Okay, Cindy Lou Who is eating 50 grams of protein. I might suggest that for a couple weeks, she sees if she can increase that to 60 to 70 grams of protein per day. show me that you can walk before you can run is something I've been saying a lot lately.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of just like diets and stuff like that. But it applies here as well. Right. Before you jump up to 150 grams of protein a day, show me you can do 70. Right. And then from there, if you can be consistent with that and that's easy for you, then start to increase. But I guarantee you that Cindy Lou Who is going to see benefits. I keep laughing at that too.
I know. I just want to be like, yoo-hoo, Lou-hoo.
I just keep thinking of the Grinch. My kids love it. But I guarantee you Cindy Lou Who is going to see benefits from increasing even 10 to 15 grams per day. Like she's going to start to see benefits and in a way that isn't like super discomforting for her.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the calculations and the targets. So probably one of the most popular ones out there is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That is kind of like the minimum for survival. That's the minimum so that your body can make hormones and it can create muscle protein and all those things. So that's kind of like survival, but it's a good marker. I say if you're wanting to do a calculation for more practicality's sake, just up that to 1. So instead of 0.8, just go 1.0 per kilogram. So if you weigh 100 kilograms, that's your target eventually is to get 100 grams of protein. Yeah. Slowly and strategically and sequentially as Kyle noted, depending on where your starting point is. But if you're looking to do any calculation, just simplify it at that. You will see some numbers for athletes that are double that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a big difference between like what different people need as well, right? So for example, you mentioned like an athlete. Well, an athlete's going to need a lot more, they're going to have a lot more demand on their body and requirement for more protein than say Cindy Lou who sits at her desk all day. Nothing against that, but she sits at her desk all day because she has an office job, and then in the evening she's exhausted, so she sits down on the couch and maybe gets some exercise in here and there. There's less demand. Like of course she still needs more protein in her diet, but there's less of a demand from her body to really get that. So I think it's important when you're reading stuff online and stuff, a lot of times you're reading what is the optimal amount. It's not being advertised that way, but what they're telling you is like, what's the optimal amount for you to get? And then people think that that's now the standard of what they should have. Well, no, there's a difference between what you need to survive and for your body to work efficiently and what the optimal amount is for your body to thrive and excel. And so there is a big difference there. And for a lot of people, it's about finding that, that gray area in the middle that works for you consistently.
Yeah. I believe they've also found the aging population, the old age population, to be fairly deficient as well. So just think about your mom, your dad out there, and maybe encourage them to eat a little bit more protein too. But athletes and much older adults tend to be deficient. Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of the benefits to increasing protein in your diet, and I wanted to touch on one more before we wrapped up. Was people who are looking to lose weight or to lose fat, right? You're exercising, you're looking to lose fat. One thing that's going to happen, so obviously, maybe not obviously, but a lot of people understand that in order to lose weight, to lose fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit, right? Yeah. So which basically means you have to be using more energy than you're taking in, and your body will then lose weight. So in order to do that, or not in order to do that, but one thing that can really help you through that process is eating more foods that are slower to break down, that do take your body longer to break down. Because what happens is, using protein as the example, but also like high fiber vegetables and stuff like that also helps. These things that are slow to break down, as they enter your digestive system, what happens is, only once it reaches a certain point through your digestive system will your body release the hormone that tells you you're full, right? So those fullness hormones in your body. So if you're eating foods that break down super easy and just go through your body quicker, then your body actually doesn't have the necessary time to properly release those hormones, right? Yeah. But if something's taking longer, it's taking longer for your body to say, hey, I'm hungry again, right? Because it just makes sense. Like if it takes half an hour to digest this food, well, then it's going to be, half an hour before your body goes, okay, time for more food. If it takes 60 minutes, Well, now it takes, 60 minutes for your body to tell you that you're hungry. So if you are eating less food throughout the day, it makes sense for you to increase the amount of whole foods that you're eating to help with that, because it is hard to lose weight. You do get hungry, right? Because you're eating less than you're used to. And that's how your body's burning energy. It's going, hey, we need more energy to keep this balance. And that's one way that you can help.
The science of satiation.
That's right.
You want to increase your satiation levels. You want to maximize them for the food that you're eating, so that your body recognizes, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of like we're just everyone's just staring into, like, when I walk around downtown, like office buildings and stuff in the food courts, like people are just staring to their phones as they're eating. I mean, I'm guilty of that too, but that's something that will also off-put your signals, is just your not paying attention to what's happening in your body. But yes, food. So protein is going to help you with that, and fiber is going to help you with that too. That's why my like lentils mung bean combo, like when I have that and have a little bit of like meat with it, I'm full for hours and hours and hours. And I've also heard too that the body, if it's telling you I'm hungry, it's because there's certain nutrients. It intuitively knows that, hey, I'm missing some magnesium, I'm missing some vitamin A. Can you try again? Can you eat a little bit more food? And so that's why when you're eating poorly, you're constantly hungry. It's not just the blood glucose spike and crash, although I think that's most of it. But I've also heard, and I probably got to look more into this, that it's also the body kind of asking you, can you try again and try again to give me some nutrients?
Well, it makes sense, because I've heard from so many people, and I've experienced it myself. It's like a night where you are either like drinking, but then eating like crappy foods as well. Those are often nights where people will wake up in the morning and they feel so hungry, and they're like, why do I feel so hungry? Like, I ate so much crap last night. Yeah. And that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Okay, one more thing. I got to bring a study into this, and this is really important about how much to eat, kind of is in line with that. So let's just use those nice even numbers. You weigh 100 kilograms, you should be getting 100 grams of protein a day. Should you do that in 100-gram steak at lunchtime? So they've done studies on this. They've separated the groups into, eating 10 grams of protein 10 times a day, eating 5 grams of protein 20 times a day, and they've chopped these groups up into 4 or 5 different groups, and they found that the human body tends to be able to efficiently process about 20 to 25 grams of protein at a time per sitting. And so the best distribution that these researchers found specifically for MPS, muscle protein synthesis, building lean muscle, was about 20 to 25 grams of protein around 4 times a day, So you could do 30 grams 3 times a day and get similar results. That was better than breaking it up a lot or doing one large bolus. Yeah.
That's a very interesting study, and I would also like kind of piggyback on that, and kind of I don't know if this is like a counter to it, or I'm not 100% sure. But one thought that I had as you were saying that is, I wouldn't let that deter you from, like, if you're having a meal that has 40 grams of protein in it, like,
go for it.
Yeah, like, go for it. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, like 10 grams of this doesn't count.
Yeah, keep it simple.
You mentioned like somebody who, has a special condition, and they kind of like tested the amount of waste, and there wasn't that much waste. So another study I have to look closer into. It's kind of like I heard this secondhand, but those with IBD, who have, let's say, had their colon removed, and they have a stoma or an ostomy bag, that really showcases the amount of waste that comes out of the food intake. And from what I heard, people who consumed a high protein diet, there was far less waste in that bag, showing that the body processes and distributes protein very effectively. It knows what to do with it. There's not a lot just going through you. It's going to use it because it's so intensively used for the immune system, for hormones, for all enzymes, that the body uses it up. Yeah, your body doesn't like to waste nutrients. Right? So that's all I was going to say about that, is just like, don't think that, oh, I'm just wasting this if I eat this right now. Like, again, there's an optimal thing that you should shoot for, and then there's also being realistic and stuff. It's like, if that's where you're getting your protein from the day, at the end of the day, your body mostly cares about like the net, at the end of the day. How much protein did I get today? Excuse me. How much protein did I get this week, this month?
Yep.
Those types of things.
Exactly. Whew, that has been an intense 45 minutes of protein.
It is. Hopefully we kept it practical enough. Like, that's always our aim here, is to give you information, but to make it in a way that you can say, like, walk away and say, okay, there's actually some useful things that I can take away and apply to my life, like, today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's towing that line. Like, we know that you can handle a lot of information. We know that you're intelligent people out there, but we also know that, you need takeaways.
Absolutely.
You need to think practical takeaways at the end of the day too. So
yeah.
Well, I'm feeling good about it, but I'm a little biased.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for listening again. We're always excited to be here, excited to have you listening, and we appreciate it. If you're listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts,
Google,
any of those platforms, please leave us a nice review if you enjoyed this episode. That's really helpful.
We never ask for reviews.
Yeah,
it's so important these days.
Yeah, we give so much, we never ask. Please share our content. It really helps us. We want to reach as many people as we can. Because we at the end of the day, we're really just here to help. We really do just want to impact lives here. So
heck yeah.
So please and thank you. And
Yep. Well said. Well said.
Looking forward to episode 12. We'll see you guys there.
See ya.
Bye.